The deputy eased out of his cruiser, his boots crunching on the gravel as he sized up the scene by the lake. There was 83-year-old Cyrus Wheeler, shirtless, his skin a fiery red from the sun, gripping a flopping rainbow trout in one hand and a frosty can of Budweiser in the other. Next to the deputy, Marjorie Tate, the HOA president, was practically combusting, her hands waving like she was directing traffic at a riot. "Let me make sure I've got this," the deputy said, his voice low and measured, like he was warding off a splitting headache. "You dialed 911 because this guy was whistling while fishing on his own dock." Cyrus's weathered face cracked into a grin, sharp and knowing, like he'd just drawn an ace in a high-stakes game. "Well, now, officer," he said, taking a slow sip of his beer, "it ain't just the dock. I own this whole stretch of shoreline." The deputy peeled off his sunglasses, his eyes going wide as Marjorie's face flashed through shades of red and purple. "Ma'am," he said, turning to her, "you might need to sit down. I'm Nathan Wheeler, a freelance graphic artist who sometimes forgets what day it is when I'm neck-deep in a project. But my grandfather, Cyrus Wheeler, never forgets a thing, not a fishing spot, not a dawn over the lake, and certainly not the boundaries of the land he's owned since 1972. Back then, Willow Creek was just wild country, towering pines, crystal water, and bears sniffing around for scraps. Now it's Crestview Shores, a fancy development where people haul sous vide machines to their lakefront cookouts and gripe when bugs dare to cross their imaginary no-fly zones around their polished cedar furniture. Leading this charge of suburban conquest was Marjorie Tate, a retired marketing exec who brandished the HOA rulebook like it was the Constitution. Her catchphrases? Community standards, property value protection, and decorum enforcement. Her least favorite? Cyrus's favorite comeback. "This was mine before you were even a thought." Marjorie stormed into Crestview Shores 4 years ago, ran unopposed for HOA president on a mission to refine our lakefront's image, and promptly unleashed a barrage of rules. She outlawed wind chimes over 11 inches, demanded all outdoor furniture be in muted tones, and even banned excessive porch lighting. Cyrus became her personal white whale. It started with a letter on HOA letterhead so heavy it could have doubled as a doorstop, stating that shirtless seniors were strongly discouraged from public view to safeguard property values. Cyrus used it to wrap fish guts for his compost. Then she labeled his dock an unauthorized structure, despite it being older than most of the neighborhood's houses. His battered aluminum canoe? A non-compliant watercraft for not matching the HOA's approved colors of charcoal or navy. She cited his bird feeders for attracting non-native species, though he'd been tossing crumbs to the same ducks for 12 years. When she heard his handmade driftwood chimes crafted by his late wife, Eliza, she called them sonic pollution. And when Cyrus played Danny Boy on his harmonica one evening, she filed a complaint for auditory disturbance. The real escalation hit during Cyrus's annual Labor Day fish fry, a tradition older than Marjorie's career. She called it an unsanctioned shoreline event and tried to get the health department involved. The inspector, after scarfing down 3 helpings of Cyrus's beer-battered base, told Marjorie to find a new pastime. Cyrus shrugged off her nonsense with the calm of a man who'd outlived 3 hounds, 2 pickups, and a couple of wars. He'd wave at her from his dock while she stood on her manicured lawn, clipboard in hand, logging his every move like she was building a case for The Hague. But one Saturday morning, everything changed. I was nursing a coffee on Cyrus's porch when 2 HOA goons in matching Crestview Shores polos marched down to his dock, toting a chain and a sign that read, "Property of Crestview Shores, HOA Directive." "Morning, boys," Cyrus called, polishing his fishing rods. "You lost?" The community sound is that way. The taller one, voice cracking like a kid at a school play, declared, "This dock violates HOA standards and is hereby seized until permits are filed." Cyrus set his rod down slow, like a gunslinger eyeing a showdown. "That's so? What gives your little clique the right to touch my property?" The shorter one, already chaining the dock's post, piped up, "The HOA owns all common areas, including the shoreline. It's in the bylaws." Cyrus grinned, pulling out his phone. "Hold that thought. Let me ring my lawyer, Callahan. He'll get a kick out of this." What Marjorie and her HOA cronies didn't know what they'd somehow missed in their zeal for uniformity was that in 1980, when the old Willow Creek Lodge went under, Cyrus bought the entire eastern shoreline. Every foot, from Dock 7 to the northern cove, was his, legally deeded and filed at the county office in a dusty cabinet probably untouched since the Reagan era. As Crestview Shores expanded, the HOA built paths, benches, even a kayak rack with a digital lock, all on Cyrus's land. He never said a word, not when they installed a pergola with smart lighting, not when they added a bocce court, not even when they hosted their Tate Point Gala, on the very spot where Cyrus taught me to skip stones at age 7. He waited, patient as a heron stalking fish, for the perfect moment. That moment came when Marjorie, in what she must have thought was her masterstroke, called the sheriff on Cyrus for what she described to 911 as aggressive and disruptive canoeing in community waters. Deputy Harlan, a young guy clearly hoping for a bank robbery instead of a dock dispute, took Marjorie's complaint with professional restraint. She'd brought a binder stuffed with photos, dates, and what she called evidence of habitual defiance, including a blurry shot of Cyrus's bare chest, which she claimed was indecent exposure. The nearest kid was her cousin's boy in Spokane. "He's poisoning the community," she shrieked, her voice hitting a pitch that made Harlan's eye twitch. "He whistles provocatively, feeds unauthorized wildlife, and I saw him pour beer into the lake." Cyrus's voice was quiet but sharp. "That was for Eliza, gone 20 years. She wanted her ashes in this water, so I share a beer with her every year." Harlan's face softened, but Marjorie pressed on. "That's pollution, and probably illegal ash disposal. Arrest him." "Ma'am," Harlan started, but Cyrus raised a hand. "Officer, let's settle whose land this is." He called his surveyor and Judge Ramsey, who owed him for fixing a boat engine back in '98. Within an hour, the dock was a county official convention. The surveyor mapped boundaries, a clerk arrived with a box of records, and Ramsey showed up in golf shorts, smirking. The findings were ironclad. Every HOA addition light posts, trash cans, that smart pergola sat on Cyrus Wheeler's private property. Marjorie rifled through the deeds, sputtering like a stalled motor. "This is impossible. We've maintained this shoreline for years. We spent thousands." Ramsey stroked his chin. "HOA funds. On private land without permission? That's curious." Harlan scribbled faster. "Are you saying you used member dues to improve private property?" he asked. Ramsey chimed in. "That's misappropriation. Possibly fraud. Worth investigating." Cyrus stood on his dock, beer in hand, looking like he'd just hit the jackpot. "I'm a reasonable man," he said. "Never asked for rent for a decade of trespassing. But chaining my dock and calling the law on me for fishing? That's where I draw the line." The sheriff's office opened an investigation that day. Marjorie tried to call an emergency board meeting, but half the board was on Cyrus's shoreline, staring at their phones, probably calculating legal exposure. Cyrus's lawyer sent a cease and desist, demanding the removal of all HOA installations, 3 pergolas, a shuffleboard court, a tranquility garden, within 10 days. The HOA's lawyer took one look at the deeds and urged compliance to avoid a lawsuit. Demolition began Monday, with Marjorie watching through binoculars, muttering like she was witnessing a travesty. But Cyrus had one more card to play. Once his shoreline was clear, he leased it to the Willow Creek Anglers Club, a group of retirees and weekend fishermen displaced by condos. They erected a sign, "Private Shoreline, property of Cyrus Fish Lord Wheeler. No trespassers." The anglers set up fish cleaning stations and a boat launch, enforcing Cyrus's rule, no non-members without his approval. Marjorie tried everything, claiming the lease was invalid, arguing adverse possession, even storming a city council meeting with a PowerPoint about weaponized lakefronts. The city attorney shut her down in 3 minutes. "Mr. Wheeler can lease his land to anyone. Your unauthorized spending, however, is under criminal review." The story blew up when a local news station aired HOA Tyrant vs. Elderly Veteran, Property Law Takedown. The clip of Marjorie grabbing for the reporter's mic, ranting about fishing cartels, went viral. Her sign-waving meltdown, "HOA Pride Matters," became a meme overnight. An audit revealed the HOA had spent $68,000 on Cyrus's land. The DA charged Marjorie with misappropriation and fraud. At her trial, her own meticulous records her weapon against Cyrus convicted her. Guilty on all counts, she got 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $42,000 restitution order. As the judge read the sentence, Marjorie clutched the table, gasping, "That's my retirement." The judge didn't flinch. Should have thought twice before spending other people's money on someone else's land. Cyrus, meanwhile, sat on his dock, rod in hand, watching the sun sink behind the pines. Crestview Shores would never recover, and neither would Marjorie Tate. Some battles, it seems, you lose before you even know you're fighting, especially when you're up against a man who owns the ground beneath your feet.